right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Something Super Podcast. I'm Steve,
And I'm Mark.
and today we will sadly be without Jay because he has other obligations like an adult. So, this week we wanted to talk about one of the hottest topics on Disney Plus currently, and that is WandaVision. So far they've only released two episodes, and I believe they're releasing single episodes from now on every Friday. Mark, what's your hot take?
Honestly, I didn't have that much of a hot take on this one. I actually really enjoyed both episodes. I'm kind of like left me wanting to see more. Like, if they would did one episode, I kind of would have been pissed off because I've been like, dude, like I want more now. And I don't know if that's just because it's been a while since we've gotten really Marvel. Like we've had a lot of Star Wars, but not much Marvel. And even like if you watch the opening credits, like they're pretty much all from Endgame. It's Endgame slash Infinity War, I believe, and
Yeah.
that's it. So like it's not even really revealing anything there. So for me, I mean, it's intriguing. I'm curious as to like where they're going to go with it and how they're going to continue. But I like the different styles that they're showing. How about you?
I couldn't agree more. I think gave us just enough of a taste where you're still hungry for more, but you were satiated with the amount that they were letting on. So for those of you listening at this point, we are going to be talking about spoilers. We're going to be talking about fan theory, etc. So, if this is where we cut off, thanks for listening. But for those of you that may have watched it or don't mind the spoilers and want to hear what we have to say and think, continue on listening. So, huge things that have come up to me, and we talked about this earlier. All of the Easter eggs since just even the opening credits of each episode. I'm glad that they did the post-credit scene in the first episode, and I'm glad that there are so many little nuances that Kevin Feige allowed to sort of pop up in here, whether it's comic related, movie related, various other things that they've sort of talked about in just the Marvel universe as a whole. So I'm super excited to see where this is going to take us. And I know it's only a 9 episode season, but I feel like they've already fit in so many little, nods to the actual MCU that it's just going to be a phenomenal show.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really think, and especially if this is going to set a precedent for what we're going to be getting out of the other shows as well, like the Winter Soldier and Falcon, and some of those other shows that they have coming out. I mean, they're setting a great pace, and for the way that it's going to tie into future Spider-Man 3 and Doctor Strange 2, like I'm intrigued to see what route they're going to go because, like you said, there's a lot of Easter eggs in the show, which I like because TV shows you can do that. You have a longer platform. Like a movie, it's okay. We got to bang this out. We got to make it, the 2.5, 2 hours, whatever. But with a show, you can put a lot more detail into them, and I just that always excites me because then it's like, well, are they doing that for a purpose? Because like there are some directors out there where it's like, if you see something, it's coming. But then there's other people where they'll just throw shit in there just for the hell of it. Like you had Howard the Duck on the front lines of Endgame.
Yeah, I like that. That was
Like,
nice. Yeah. So I wanted to cover a couple Easter eggs here, and we'll start, I guess, with episode one to and then we'll jump into the episode two spoilers just to keep with continuity. So, like most 50s and 60s sitcoms, they have the mid episode commercials. These are only, I mean, what, 25, 28 minute episodes. So, to have that little commercial in there and that nod to selling the housewife in the 50s and 60s, I thought it was awesome. The Stark Industries toaster, huge, obviously a nod to Tony and Howard Stark. But not only that, you had mentioned that, well, first of all, it's the only thing that has color in the first episode, which is the red blinking light, the arc reactor, pulse repulsor noise when they pull down the toaster handle, and then the beeping of the unexploded Stark Industries missile that landed next to them. So just right there, I mean, so many tie-ins to like their origin story. and sort of how they, came to be. Mark, what do you think of that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that it's a very smart way to do it. And like you said, it's the first thing in, it's the only thing in that episode, but the first thing overall. And we'll get to the other things that have color when we hit episode two. But like just the fact that like she's starting to see like the color and stuff and everything there, for me, I think that those commercials are really going to be key. Like they're bigger than I think people are going to realize because each one so far, I know there's only been two, but both of them have had, like you said, this one had three straight callbacks to their actual past in the comics. And the second commercial actually has it too. So for me, I'm wondering if one, we're going to get to see more of what actually happened to them in Sokovia when they were being experimented on prior to Age of Ultron, um, or if it's just going to be kind of like told to us somehow through these commercials. Because there's a lot of things, and the one thing I found really interesting was the Stark Industries would have been Howard Stark, not Tony,
Yes, in the
because of the
50s and
time
60s.
period of the TV show. So that was a little continuity because if you remember in the first Captain America movie, his father had the whole expo where he was like, it's a lot of things that were coming out like for the public. It was a flying car. There was like a couple other, there was a bunch of other stuff, but like it was all for consumers. It
Yep,
wasn't like Tony where he's like, hey, I'm going to build War Machine a suit or I'm going to build Quinjet for like Shield. It was like, yeah, go buy this at Walmart.
exactly. Yeah, more for the average, home buyer.
But yeah, I mean, for me, this has been like a pretty cool thing to see because then we get into we meet Agnes, who I have my theories about who she could be, and we'll get more into that in episode two because there's something that she does that really kind of like caught my eye, and I didn't know if I was going crazy until I did some research, and other people caught it too, and that's where I was like, oh, okay. But I mean, as far as the actress that plays Agnes, she's hysterical. For any of you guys out there who've seen Step Brothers, she's Derek's wife. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, she's been in so much more, but that's like the once I saw her, I was like, oh my god. So, but no, I mean, the casting for this show has been very, very well put together. And just overall, I mean, I thought it was funny how like you see Vision kind of like at an actual job, like the whole thing that they do, which I'm sure anybody who's been in relationships for a while, I mean, everybody hits that one moment where we see something and neither of us know what it is, but we both act like we know what it is. So like they saw the heart on the calendar and they're like, oh yeah, I know what that is, but like they wouldn't tell each other. They just pretended like they knew.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, Vision makes the point that like, oh, I'm a supercomputer robot. I can't forget. And I think that, it's funny because that is a common relationship struggle. It's, oh yeah, I definitely remember what that is. Do you remember what that is? Go ahead, tell me. So, uh, I mean, obviously the date night goes awry, and it's actually the Hearts, which are, Vision's boss and his wife are coming over for dinner. Now, one of the big things
Yay.
there that I noticed was the Maison du Mépris, which is the wine that they have, which is sort of a callback to the House of M comic storyline, where, again, this was my original fan theory. Wanda creates a new reality. And in this one, it's a little different. It's more, Susie Homemaker and her husband. But in the House of M storyline, her twins die, her brother dies, and the trauma of that causes her to create an entirely new reality, which is basically just ruled by her and her family. So again, my original working theory from a couple episodes ago was this is all happening in Wanda's head. I'm hoping that that's still true. Um, but to kick into a higher gear here, we've seen now the sword logo at the end of the first episode. So,
Uh,
Mark, what do you think the tie-in for sword is?
so for me, I think that there's a couple tie-ins because me and Steve were talking right before this episode about like the things that we noticed, and one thing that I noticed obviously was we're getting another Hydra presence. Now I don't know if it's because of the time period pieces, because at this point in Marvel, like Hydra's around, but they're not like a superpower. As to where during the time period of the TV shows that they're replicating, Hydra would have been like full swing, Red Skull, the whole deal. And obviously, in the second episode, you see like the Grim Reaper. You see his mask in one of the floorboards, and one of his tie-ins is with Hydra. But then, like Steve said, it could be also be AIM, which if that's the case, I think somebody has her under some kind of either she's either in her own mind, but I think basically she got captured. She's being experimented on by who? I'm not sure yet. But my theory is Sword's trying to save her. And that's where I'm feeling that it's going to be coming from. So I think, like, for those of you who don't know, Sword is the counterpart to Shield that deals with intergalactic issues that threaten the world. So obviously, after Thanos came to Earth and did what he did during Infinity War and Endgame, they beefed up their security. And at the end of Captain Marvel, you see kind of like Samuel L. Jackson, you see Nick Fury on a space carrier, and there's actually scrolls on her. So like you can see they were already starting to plant those seeds. And if that's the case, there's a lot of cool things that can end up coming out of this because when it comes to Hydra, obviously you have all them, but when it comes to AIM, or not AIM, I'm sorry, when it comes to Sword, one of the first people that helped put it together was actually Beast. So they could already be planting the seeds for the X-Men, which for me personally, I have other theories about how this could tie in. But like you said, if this does go the House of M storyline, like next to like Dark Phoenix, that's like the holy grail of X-Men storylines.
Yes, and that's huge. You know, House of M was a great series. That would also tie in Secret Wars. Like there are so many tie-ins to that, like you said, and I know Marvel technically doesn't own the rights to the X-Men just yet, but they're getting there. I think Fox is coming up to the end of their contract with them, which means, you know, as Marvel and Disney do, we'll probably end up buying up as much as they can from them. And I think bringing mutants into this world, because that's, I mean, really where they belong anyway. That's where they've always come from, is the Marvel universe. Let's just make it happen. You know, let's make these, I mean, the MCU even greater. You know, these movies are going to be that much better. They're going to be basically going on forever at this point because there's so much, you know, untapped resource that we have. I mean, there's a million comics there. We went over in our Disney Plus and Beyond episode, what's coming in 2021 episode, all of the things that we're looking forward to from Marvel and the whole Disney franchise. So, you know, I guess to jump into episode 2, we can sort of talk about some of the spoilers there as well and the Easter eggs. In the beginning of the episode, like you had mentioned, there's the Grim Reaper of the Marvel Universe. His helmet is in the floorboards as Vision's, you know, sort of floating around the house. When Wanda is in the grocery store and she's, you know, magicking stuff around into her cart, if you look at the signs in the back, there is Bova Milk, which Bova is the name of the cow who is sentient that actually helped give birth to Wanda and Pietro Maximoff. So I like these little nods. They're things that if you didn't know, you wouldn't know. It looks like a, you know, 50s, 60s sitcom intro where it's cartoons, very similar to Bewitched, which I think is the same noise that they're using every time she uses her powers. But it has that feel to it. You know, you got the laugh track in the background, the crazy neighbors, et cetera, all the, you know, funny antics that they have going on. So I personally so far love it. There are so much, you know, that Mark, you had brought up earlier about just every little Easter egg that you wanted to get into in episode 2. So I'm going to kind of let you, you know, have the reins here and let's dive in.
Oh yeah, so obviously like the first thing you mentioned was as he's floating through the house, you see a spider web, you see the Grim Reaper's helmet, well Marvel's version of the Grim Reaper, and you see like some bones. So for me personally, like when I saw that, it kind of got me excited because one of the big affiliations that the Grim Reaper has is with the Sinister Six. And as we know, um obviously like sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Wow. Yeah, good job, Mark. But yeah,
So
so
Sinister Six tie-in with Spider-Man.
right. So as we know, like this show is supposed to tie into the Spider-Man 3, so like they could be planting seeds for that. Also, though, one of the partnerships Grim Reaper had was actually with Ultron, who we know has a huge influence on Wanda and, well, now dead Pietro. But I'm wondering if maybe we'll get some flashbacks. Like one theory that I actually did read that I thought would be kind of cool. It was, I doubt it'll happen, but someone was saying like, what if we get an Ultron cameo, but it's actually just um, what's the actor's name that voiced him? I can't think of his name. Oh my god, from
Off the top of my head, I
Blacklist.
can't think of his name either, but I mean, he plays the actual Vision, does he not?
No, I'm talking about Ultron.
Oh, sorry, Ultron. Jesus.
Yeah, from oh my god, James Spader.
Okay.
Someone was saying it'd be cool to kind of see like if they're gonna go that route and tell their story through flashbacks or like through Easter eggs, maybe just having James Spader like physically appear, like maybe not as Ultron, but like his like as himself.
Oh, absolutely. And the voice would sort of kick off,
Exactly.
that trauma.
So yeah, and I thought that would be really interesting because I was like that would be a cool nod to like okay that's her past because obviously in the commercial you see in the second one it's the watch where
Hmm.
you have it literally says Hydra on it. It has the emblem, and then it says Strucker, which, as you know, like at the end of Age of Ultron, and he's actually killed by Ultron, and at the end of was it Captain America? I think when they show him with the twins for the first time.
Yeah, when they're in the cages or the boxes or whatever.
Yeah, she's playing with the blocks, and he's just running around.
Yeah.
But obviously, like I was saying, Strucker was a higher up in Um, Hydra, I know that he actually also has huge ties, Steve, if you want to go into his ties with AIM.
Hmm. Well, yeah, in the comics, Von Strucker, if I'm not mistaken, is the founder of AIM, contrary to the Aldrich Killian storyline that not Spider-Man, Jesus, Iron Man 3 went. And either way, I mean, that's sort of where the end credit of I want to say end credit because I guess it's not technically the end if they do the rewind at the end of episode two, but the original end of episode two, where the beekeeper comes crawling out of the storm drain. Now, not only does he have a sword logo on his back, but AIM in most of the comic books, their henchmen, which were a million to one, were just, I mean, they dressed like shitty beekeepers in bright yellow suits. So again, we don't have color in this episode until the very end of it, but I would like to believe that him crawling out of there would have been in either a muted yellow or a bright yellow suit to sort of give that nod to the AIM beekeepers. Um, but again, that's just speculation because most of the show has been in black and white so far.
Yeah, and like he just said, actually, I think we see color two other times prior. So the first, so it opens up, you hear like the banging on the window, and that's where they kind of like do the couples like, go check it out, honey, and all that. And it turns out to be the tree branch. But then in the morning, Wanda finds the helicopter that's red and yellow. It's got the number 57, which alludes to Vision's first appearance in the comics in issue 57. Then the second time you see it is when I forget her name, but she cuts her hand on the glass and her blood.
Oh yeah,
Like
Dottie.
Dottie, when Dottie cuts her hand, and like you kind of see the blood. So I'm not sure. My personal thing is I'm wondering if these are little things that maybe Wanda can actually see color. She's just presenting it to everyone else in black and gray. So I think maybe the helicopter being the red and yellow obviously could signify a Stark suit. Then you have like blood, the red blood, like that could just be something that kind of like snaps her out of you name it. Her brother getting lit up by a machine gun, Vision getting his head crushed in by Thanos. Like blood could symbolize so much hurt that she's had from the past, and maybe that's what's slowly breaking her psyche and letting the colors, to no pun intended, bleed through.
Yeah, I mean that was actually going to be my, as we were talking about it and you mentioned the blood, like the last time we really saw someone close to her bleed like that, because Vision doesn't obviously have any blood, was when her brother got shot. So I think again, it that could be a reach, but that is definitely something that I agree with as far as fan theories go. She's sort of getting, little tips and tricks from her, the subconscious of her mind, like, hey, wake up. When you hear the radio going off when she's at the pool, And it's like, hey, Wanda, Wanda, and it keeps saying her name over and over again. I know you had said that hopefully, and again, this could also be a reach, but it's Charles Xavier, which is, Professor X talking with Cerebro to her and the other mutants and trying to get her to snap out of it because she is trapped within her own mind.
Yeah, I mean, just going off of it, like that's right now, that's the theory that I'm thinking. Because if they are going to tie in the X-Men, I mean, not many of them I feel would have not many people in the Marvel universe would have the power to reach out to her if she's in her own mind, and Wanda is that powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have to be a powerful psychic, obviously, because if it's coming through the speakers and things like that, that's where I'm like, okay. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, it really, like, it could be, but it could also just be I doubt they would do it this way just because Marvel doesn't do it. It could just be a throwaway, like, character from Sword or whatever, just trying to reach out to her, like in the Winter Soldier. Like when they're trying to take over the helicarriers, you had like the one guy who was like, I'm not going to push that button. But like that was his only role.
Yeah.
And then I think he gets shot in the face or he gets saved or whatever. So like it could be something like that, but I feel like it's too big of a presence because you see somebody monitoring her at the end of the first episode, and then you're actually hearing them talk in the second one, and then you see someone infiltrate the actual universe. But the way that she says no and rewinds it, like you alluded to, makes me believe that she knows that this isn't a reality, but she's not ready to face the reality of what actually happened in Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's just interesting because it's like that you're probably in the hands of somebody else. And my assumption, like one of my guesses, is whoever has her, whether it's AIM, whether it's Sword, whether it's whatever. I think they're trying to see what would happen if she did have a child, and that's why, like, after she rewinds, all of a sudden she has the baby bump.
Yeah.
Because obviously, like, I mean, as far as I know, I'm not huge on Marvel comics, as you guys know, but I know Wanda's very, very close, like, excluding the Phoenix Force. Like, I know she's very close on power terms with Jean Grey.
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously, I know Jean Grey is OP as shit in the comics,
Absolutely.
and like, I know literally she's probably, if not the strongest character, like top three, and that's me being polite. Like, she's probably number one or number two. But
They did
um,
her dirty. Just, off topic for a second, let's derail. They did Dark Phoenix so terribly. I did not like that movie that much.
I thought it was better than X-Men 3.
Well,
I'm not saying it was good. I'm
yeah.
saying it was better.
I mean, the X-Men movies as a whole, shy of like, Logan and, like the Origins Wolverine minus Deadpool was I
You mean
mean,
like the first 10 minutes?
yeah, pretty much. Well, no, I mean Ryan Reynolds playing non-burned up Deadpool was pretty cool.
Right,
But
the
the
first 10
the
minutes.
aftermath, yeah. The aftermath of that was garbage. So, um yeah, Fox did not do a great job.
No, and that's why I'm excited, but that's where I'm kind of going. I'm thinking it could be. I mean, I feel like it wouldn't be like Nick Fury to not utilize a Charles Xavier or somebody, but it could be somebody else. I mean, there's a ton of villains that have psychic capabilities too. That could be.
Hmm.
But to me, it sounds like because they're like, who's doing this to you? So I think it's Sword trying to figure out what it is, and honestly, it could be AIM because if they feel like they basically took out Hydra, I mean,
Yeah.
that wouldn't be like their first thought. So, but going back to some of the other things in the episode that I really enjoyed was the neighbor Agnes. Now, like I said earlier, one thing that I kind of noticed is the first time that she meets Vision. It's early in the episode, you'll see it. When they open the door, Agnes is there and she's like, "Oh, and you must be," and Wanda slams the door on her. But if you watch, she kind of like waves her hand like this, like up and down. I know you guys couldn't see. I know me and Steve are on Zoom, so he's watching me, but she kind of waves her hand up and down. And if you watch later on when Vision's drunk on gum,
It was
um,
hilarious.
yeah, oh, dude, that was one of the like the highlights of like Marvel for me. Like he did such a good job. But she does the same thing to find what's wrong with him. She starts at his head, she kind of waves her hand up and down his body, and then finds the gum in his stomach. So Agnes could actually be from the Wanda comics. What was her actual name? I forget. I know you looked it up, Steve.
Maria Rambo.
No, the witch.
Oh,
Agnes.
Agnes. Her name is. I just had it. Something Harkness. So with an A. Oh Jesus, Agatha Harkness. It's
Yes.
the ancient witch.
Right. So in the comics, she works with like the devil. So me personally, she keeps bringing up this husband Richard. Oh, if you need to get rid of somebody, how about my husband Richard? Oh, you should meet my husband Richard, but you never meet him. All you meet is a rabbit. So I'm thinking she turned her husband into a rabbit because she works with the devil, or the rabbit actually is Marvel's version of the devil. Which, if that's the case, I mean, we're setting up huge players that could be Avenger level villains.
Absolutely.
So, because then during the talent show, there's other things that kind of give it away. Is when Wanda finds the helicopter, she's like piecing together what's going on, and then Agatha interrupts it, or Agnes, not Agatha. Agnes interrupts it. And then, like, when Wanda goes back in the house, the mailman walks by and she's like, yeah, you better watch what you're asking. And does like the finger point at him, kind of like almost like a threat, like, I know I'm way more powerful than you. Do what I'm saying. Then, actually, at the talent show, when Vision's like, oh, you guys want to see magic? Like, he flies up and Agnes starts looking kind of worried and goes to grab her purse. Um, and I don't know what could be in her purse. It could just be kind of like where she keeps some of her magic stuff, or maybe it's actually like um in Thor Ragnarok when he's interacting with Doctor Strange and Mjolnir just looks like an umbrella. It could be a similar scenario to that. There's a lot of things it could be, but then one of the big things is just how much they're relating it back to the devil. So Dottie's like, the devil's in the details, and like Agnes like leans over to Wanda, is like, that's not the only place he is. So like for me, I'm like, I think that there's a lot going on, and a lot of these characters have ties to Hydra and to AIM. And I'm thinking that maybe during this next phase, that's where we're gonna go. We're gonna start like phase one did with, oh, it's Hydra, and then it's gonna evolve into something bigger where we might get a Galactus or Silver Surfer or who have you out in the intergalactic side of things. But on Earth, I think between this leading into Doctor Strange in the multiverse, which it's already been pretty much confirmed that they're going to introduce the X-Men there. You got Spider-Man 3 where they just finished shooting with, I forget the actor's name, but he plays Daredevil in the Netflix series, Matt Murdock. He just finished, and Kevin Feige, I think it was Kevin Feige, also just confirmed that the Defenders are going to be in the Marvel Universe, which means that you're eventually going to have Luke Cage. You're going to have, I don't know if they're going to keep the same actors and actresses, but they're all coming over. Along with the Punisher, we've already said gotten John Bernthal's coming back. So I don't know if they're just going to take those characters and bring them over to Marvel, but yeah.
I mean, and this, a less serious note of little things that they're sort of hinting to. The brand of gum that Vision's coworker gives to him is Big Red, which was actually the original working title of the show. That was like the code name for it back when they were filming in 2019. So little things like that. I thought that was kind of a cool nod. And if you didn't know, again, you wouldn't know. Also, Glamour and Illusion is a straight pull from the comics, which was the married couple's stage name when they were doing magic.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but I mean, similar to this, they're trying to hide the fact that they have superpowers, but they actually use their superpowers to perform magic tricks in the comics.
yeah, and actually a little funny backstory. I don't know if you've heard about this. Did you hear about the pitch meeting with Paul Bettany and how
I
that
did not.
went? And you didn't see that? Okay, so Paul Bettany was doing an interview where he's talking about like, he's like, obviously at the end of Infinity War, I get my head crushed. Thanos takes the stone, and that's the end of me. He's like, so when I get a call from Marvel Studios, I'm like, okay, here it is. They're going to let me go. I'm fired. I got to start looking for new roles. I got to start doing this, getting my life together, figuring out what's next. I go in, sit down. I'm expecting to get fired. I'm doing the polite, the pleasantries, the how are you? Hey, how are you? What are you doing? I sit down. They pitch a TV show to me. So he went into the TV show pitch expecting to get fired.
I mean, in all fairness, I completely understand his fears there. Not, not being aware of the WandaVision plans, but yeah, I mean, what are you going to say to Robert Downey Jr. when you bring him in? Unless you're going to start a new Iron Man series. Like, that's it. Like, sorry, you're done. You're dead. There's no bringing you back. We tried. It failed. Sorry.
Right, but I mean, me personally, that's one thing I really like about this show is in the movies, Vision is a very cold cut kind of humor, like because obviously he's mostly machine, so he doesn't really have like a personality. Like even later on, like in the first movie, he's very dry, but then even when his personality comes in, he's still kind of dry just because he's an android or a cyborg or I don't know what he technically is, a humanoid.
Yeah.
But like, and now in the TV show, you're seeing, like you said, like when he's drunk, like that to me was like hysterical. I was like, dude, and especially because it's like, oh, it was a piece of gum that did it to him. Like,
Yeah, I mean
uh,
that would be like similar to him having his first quote unquote beer. Like he's never had alcohol before, but like, he's never had anything before really. It shows you in the intro when his coworker gives him a cup of water and he like throws it behind him on his boss. But he doesn't eat, he doesn't drink because he doesn't have to because like you said he's sort of an android humanoid, whatever the hell Tony and the Hulk created. Uh, but I do like the fact that his first time eating anything, he's just like, oh, I'll try it. Peer pressured him into having a piece of gum, and this was the outcome.
yeah, like, and I mean, he says it like four times through the two episodes. So he's like, yeah, I don't eat food. And everyone just kind of like looks at him, and he's like, right now, like in between, like, because that's the other thing that they do too is I like that they're keeping to the time period like you said, like they're selling the American housewife and all that, but at the same time, they're kind of reversing the roles. So like you have her going to like the meetings and everything like that, and with the community, but then with him, he's like, oh, I'm gonna go to the night watch meeting, but then they're just gossiping, which is like something you would expect from the meetings that Wanda's going to. They would be more the gossip, but they're the ones that are actually like, look, we gotta get this, and this done. Um, I got a question for you, Steve, just
Shoot.
because I honestly have absolutely no idea. For the children, what do you think that's all about? Because there is not a single child in this show so far, not in the background, not in any of the neighbors' house windows, nowhere, not in the parks, not at the talent show that was for the kids. So what's your theory if you have one on that?
So just you mentioning that, I happen to be reading something about I guess like the history of Wanda and Vision. So in the 80s in the comics is when she gave birth to the twins. So I know technically, I think each episode is probably going to maybe bring them up, a couple of years or maybe a time period. So we were looking at like the 50s in the first episode, the 60s in the second episode. I'm not saying it's going to jump 10 years each time, but in the 80s is when she gave birth, in the comics at least. So now that we have color, maybe we're moving towards the 70s. And then maybe in a couple episodes is when she's going to actually give birth to these twins. And obviously, because they were conceived of two superhumans or superpowered people or mutants or, whatever you want to call them, I think everything they're doing is quote unquote for the children, which is for the two unborn children or that are currently born, but maybe they don't know how to control them. And, Wanda went into, a coma induced by childbirth. I don't know. Again, we're just throwing fan theories out here, but everything could be for her children to try to either keep them alive or maybe like that's the only thing that's keeping them alive is her. Or maybe they're trying to induce labor. I don't know what we'll find out, I guess, later, but that could be it. And again, that is right off the top of my head theory. Give me an episode or two and I'll try to revise it best as possible.
No, I mean, honestly, that's kind of right up the thinking that I had. I haven't really done that much, but one theory that I'm thinking, the way that the For the Children's going to tie is like you said, she eventually gives birth to twins and they eventually die, which causes the House of M story to come. So something that I was thinking was originally earlier we were like, oh, there's Doctor Strange in the multiverse. Like, what if Doctor Strange is the one that creates it? I'm wondering now, what if Wanda is the one that creates the multiverse, and that's how she directly affects Spider-Man and Doctor Strange? So what if it's Doctor Strange trying to figure out what the fuck happened, and that's the plot of
Sure.
his movie? And they end up discovering like, oh shit, like it was actually Wanda that did this, because Doctor Strange really, no, he's never interacted, I don't think, with Wanda directly.
Shy of like Endgame, and again, like we're not even talking direct. Just like that's the only time they've really like been together.
And that's what I'm saying, but I don't think they even interacted. Like,
Yeah, I can't.
because Doctor Strange got snapped. Did Wanda? Wanda got
Mm,
snapped too.
yes, she did too.
So like both of them were snapped, so they would have been in separate locations there because like as Spider-Man explained, like he was like, ah, I passed out and then I woke back up on the planet. So like they were just in like an altered dimension of where they physically were. So Wanda at the time would have been in Wakanda where Doctor Strange would have been on Titan.
Yeah.
So Doctor
What?
Strange, to his knowledge, really doesn't even know. I mean, I'm sure he knows of Wanda because, like, he knew about Odin, he knows about Loki, like, he knows about all these like things. But then the question is, does he know about Wanda? Because like Loki attacked New York. Clearly, they're gonna know that history, and he's gonna know about who Loki is and do his research, which would lead him to Odin, which would lead him to all the rest. So I'm wondering if these are characters that really don't know Wanda, and that's why they would be the most affected because like Hulk could know that this could be something Wanda would do. Like they know Wanda and they know they've seen her and Vision together and things like that. Like that's my theory.
I know, absolutely. My only, I don't want to say correction because I could be miserably wrong. My only adjustment to your theory is let's look back at like, the ancient one from Endgame when they're going around and Bruce Banner has the conversation with her and he's like, "Oh, where's Stephen Strange? Or where's Doctor Strange?" She's like, "Oh, he's not here yet. You're, X amount of years too early." I'm sure Doctor Strange knows about Wanda and maybe he even knows what she's capable of, but due to his, ability to keep the timeline or not ability, the his like duty to keep the timeline the way it is, he can't necessarily interfere with her. So even though he knew, and again, he watched like the 14 million different ends to how it was supposed to happen. He didn't like tell Tony, "Yo, Tony, you got to do this." Like he had Tony figure it out on his own, and Tony did the right thing.
I mean, yeah, that's
So he
possible.
might know. And again, it could be called the multiverse of madness because Wanda is slowly going mad. Like she's going insane inside her own head.
Right.
And that's, I mean, Christ, look at episode 1 with the Harts coming over for dinner. Like Mr. Hart was dying on the floor, and his wife's like, "Oh, ha, 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 stop!" And like that's all she said. She just kept repeating herself over and over and over again. Like it was creepy. I mean, the mother from that '70s show just made that
Kitty.
the creepiest. Oh, stop! Just stop choking. Basically, just stop choking. You're fine.
Well, my take on that part was like, yes, it was creepy, and she's like, "Oh, stop, you're fine." But like during that time period, like I don't think CPR was a thing yet, so like there really wasn't anything that they could have done while he was choking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
So
mean,
I
the
think,
Heimlich maneuver had to have been something, right?
well, no, and honestly, that was exactly what I said. I was like, oh, well, the Heimlich. But even then, I'm sitting there and I'm like, he's a big dude. Like, yeah, Vision probably could have did the Heimlich, but he wouldn't have known better. Wanda and Kitty wouldn't be able to get their arms around the guy. So I think that was her just being nervous, like not knowing how else to react. Because what are you gonna do in a situation where you're powerless? You don't know what to do.
Well, so my theory, conversely, I guess doesn't necessarily align. I guess it's perpendicular to your theory. Is that like you had said, a lot of these people are implants, like Maria Rambo. You got Agnes, and we believe these people are real people who are basically implanted in her mind via AIM or Sword or whoever's working on her currently. But I believe that some of the characters are made up. Like the Hearts. Like they're not. I don't think they have any direct tie to the MCU or Wanda, Vision, the Avengers, etc. So when something like that happens, it's out of the realm of what the computer can understand, the one that she's like hooked up to in my theory. And that's why basically it was sent into a loop because the computer didn't understand how to react properly to someone dying.
That's true.
So maybe that it was just like, oh, stop, stop, because like it didn't seem like her voice really changed much, and it was sort of the same reaction over and over and over again. So again, a lot of my theories could be really far reaching, but I like to think that I'm doing all right so far. We'll see, I guess, as the show progresses.
I mean, one thing that does support at least half of your theory is that at the talent show, Agnes is sitting with Mrs. Hart, but Mr. Hart is no longer there.
Yeah,
And so, I mean, it's possible that, like, because he may have whatever with the programming or whatever it is, whether he's a robot, whether it's all computer generated and it's all whatever, but whatever he was, I think, yeah, he got taken out because he malfunctioned basically, but she didn't. So that's why I'm like, okay. Or they're both conjured up by Agnes, like we said. Like she's not necessarily a hero, but she's not necessarily a villain. So whoever's pulling the strings, though, I mean, they're just doing such a good job of keeping us like guessing as to who it is and who it could be. And this is the Marvel that I enjoy.
yes, absolutely.
Like, I don't know what comes next. I mean, there's so much stuff that could be happening. I mean, you have Michael B. Jordan apparently coming back for Black Panther 2, which I haven't heard
Exciting.
anything about this, but Doctor Doom's supposed to be in there also, which pertains back to a lot of like world organizations and him controlling a lot of stuff. You have Matt Murdock coming in Spider-Man 3. You have Doctor Strange 2, where this is supposed to tie in. Like,
Well,
there's
and
so much that these things could mean, and I mean they could mean things for characters that we don't even know are coming yet.
yes, let's
Like,
not forget. I mean, I know as far as multiverse theory goes, we're very heavily reliant on the multiverse of madness and Spider-Man 3, enacting the Spider-Verse, so to say. But let's not forget Ant-Man and Wasp, the Quantum Mania. So like the quantum verse as well, where basically, I mean, you're devoid of like time and space. So you can be everywhere and nowhere
well,
in the
that
quantum
was
realm.
actually funny you say that. My fiance actually, her theory as to who the voice is, like mine is Charles Xavier, but her first thought was Ant-Man.
Okay.
She was like, what if that's actually him, like trying to communicate to her? Because obviously both of them were on Cap's team, so he would have an emotional attachment of some sort to her as just as a teammate. Not like in love, but like, hey, like something's happening. He's always the do-gooder. So like for him, like he never wants to see anybody be in pain or anything like that. Like he's always going to try to fix it himself, no matter what the case be. Plus, like you just said, he could be everywhere and nowhere. So I mean, he could go into the quantum realm trying to find her, because obviously he can jump through time. Who's to say he can't jump through dimensions or to other universes and stuff too?
Correct. And that's, I mean, again, a working theory. We'll see how the Quantum Mania movie plays out and how the rest of the season of WandaVision plays out. But I do like the fact, and one of my favorite things, like you had mentioned with the Marvel, and I mean, I want to say lack of spoilers. It's probably the easiest way to describe how they handle their, trailers, the end credit scenes, because I mean, they don't give you enough information to accurately guess necessarily what's going on, or in a lot of the cases, they mislead you on purpose.
Yeah, no, like I mean, for me personally, there's so many directions that they could take this show, and the fact that they're keeping so much under wraps, I love it. I mean, I think by the final episode, we'll probably see Nick Fury at some point. That's my assumption, but that's just because it's Marvel. Like you can't not have Nick Fury. like,
Sure.
but I mean, as far as for me, I mean, those were pretty much all the key Easter eggs that I picked up on, and a lot of things that they could tie into. So, like I said, I mean, they could be doing anything as far as, oh, we're going to contain this these characters just to this TV show, or hey, like these are characters that could literally be a threat to the Avengers as a whole and lead into our next phase of Avengers movies.
Yes.
Like,
So, a big thing for me, if you guys listen to this and you enjoyed our fan theories per, well, I don't want to say per episode because we've already had two, but if you want to hear us do, maybe bi-weekly fan theories for what's going to happen at the end of the series, or, we can touch base when the series does finally wrap and go over, sort of hit those main talking points of like, hey, this was right, this was wrong, this was completely, devoid of any actual real thought. But I mean, you let us know on our Facebook group. You can shoot us an email at somethingsuperpodcast@gmail.com. But I mean, as far as working theories, that's really all I've got so far. Again, they gave me just enough to eat and keep me still hungry. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to next week on Friday. I don't know about you, but I'm ready.
yeah, no, like I'm wholeheartedly ready to dive in because at first I wasn't sure how TV shows would work with Marvel being like only a movie universe so far, but with the path that they're going now, if it's gonna, I'm curious to see if they all tie together. So like, will Falcon and the Winter Soldier refer to events happening here, or will it strictly stick to the movies? That's where I'm kind of curious. But other than that, like, yeah, I'm just excited to see what's coming next.
All right. Well, I guess since we both have nothing left to say, thank you guys for listening. Again, I'm Steve.
And I'm Mark.
And please feel free to check us out on all major streaming platforms, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and thank you to Anchor for hosting us. And we will see you guys next week.